Guys, over the last few months, Drake has been trolling us on another level, alright? Kendrick has been playing chess, Drake has been playing trolls. It started back in April when he dropped the tailor-made freestyle where he was still begging Kendrick Lamar to diss him. Boy, does he probably regret that now. And in that song, he used AI vocals from Tupac and Snoop Dogg, which pissed a lot of people off, including Tupac's estate, which threatened to sue Drake if he didn't take down the song. And it was ultimately Drake's carefree attitude that led to his demise in his battle against Kendrick Lamar and the rest of the rap industry, basically. So guys like Kendrick Lamar and Metro Boomin were extremely calculated with their attacks on Drake, right? Metro dropped 2 albums with Future, where he basically assembled a collective of different rappers and even singers who hated Drake to come on and diss Drake on those albums. One of those rappers was Kendrick Lamar, who featured on the Metro Boomin album and basically begged Drake to come and engage in a beef with him. As you know, Drake obviously took the bait, and the two engaged in a legendary back and forth, but aside from 2 pretty solid diss tracks on Drake's part with Family Matters and Push-Ups, he really seemed to have an oddly carefree attitude about the entire beef. And while Kendrick was constantly one step ahead, dropping records 30 minutes after Drake dropped his records, allegedly recording a 19-minute diss track against Drake, and putting out like 5 diss songs against Drake, each of them having a different sound and theme, it was very obvious that Kendrick put a lot of effort into making sure he destroyed Drake's reputation as much as he could. On the other end, Drake didn't really seem fazed by this beef and really spent a large proportion of the entire back and forth just trolling Kendrick and all his other ops on Instagram. For example, him and Rick Ross were beefing on Instagram about whose plane was bigger or whether or not Drake had a nose job. Drake also sent Rick Ross's ex-girlfriend a pair of backstage tickets to his concert. He told Metro Boomin to shut up and make some drums, and then he sent a bunch of drummers over to the Magic City strip club in Atlanta. I mean, even the day the Future put out his album and this entire beef started, Drake walked out to Future's song My Savages at his show. Now, Drake is known to be a troll, or at least be comedic. If you guys don't remember, he did start off as an actor before he was even a rapper. Like, he sent Pusha T an invoice back when they were beefing, charging a fee for quote-unquote reviving his career. And we can't forget about the 2015 OVO Fest where he put a bunch of memes up of Meek Mill and Nicki Minaj. But something seemed different with this entire beef and all the trolling that he was doing. It didn't seem calculated. It seemed like it came from a place of emotion or just confusion on what his next move should actually be. Now, I'm not trying to hate on Drake here. I actually said from the beginning I don't think it was ever worth his time to engage in this beef, just because he had nothing to gain and everything to lose by going up against an insane rapper like Kendrick Lamar and basically half the music industry with The Weeknd, Rick Ross, A$AP Rocky, Metro Boomin, and all these other rappers. There was very little benefit for him in this entire thing. So for him to now shift the focus away from this beef and onto more lighthearted, comedic music, I don't think it's the worst approach he could take on paper. What I mean by that is, we don't need another Heart Part 6 where he's angrily defending himself against serious allegations that Kendrick's made against him. And we don't need another Push-Ups where he's angrily defending himself against all the rappers that came at him. But at the same time, the only thing we've heard from Drake since this whole beef happened were 2 tracks from him in the last 2 weeks. And if these aren't blatant trolls, then these could be some of the worst Drake songs in history. The first one he dropped was a track with Sexy Red, which was ironic after how badly Kendrick Lamar called him out for working with Sexy Red on his track Euphoria. And on that song, Drake is rapping over the BBL Drizzy beat that Metro Boomin made, which could be considered one of the greatest diss beats of all time. Now, a week later, he's back with a new song, which is just basically a parody of Hey There Delilah, where he's putting on this Toronto accent, asking his girl Wah Gwan and telling her that he's bare cheese because his man knows another man's that had slapped her in the past. Now, I'm from Montreal, which is pretty close to Toronto, so I'll do my best to translate these lyrics for you guys. Basically, he's talking to his girl. He's apologizing for arriving late to her house because there was a lot of traffic. He's saying he's very upset because his man knows another man who had hit Drake's girl before Drake. Then he's accusing her of having wild nights when she was younger. Then he's asking to go on a double date with her bestie, and he's apologizing that the homie that he brought on the double date is wearing a mask, but he's promising that that man is still attractive, even though he's wearing a mask. And he's saying the reason for the mask is because the streets of Toronto are extremely dangerous. There's a chance that one of his enemies is out lurking, and so he's got to be covered up in disguise so that none of his ops could basically see him. Hope you guys like that breakdown, and I mean, in all honesty, this song is pretty funny, right? But if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like, I could not see Drake pulling a move like this back in 2015 when he was beefing Meek Mill. I can't tell if this is just an attempt to distract the public from the loss that he took to Kendrick Lamar, or if all the trolling that he's done throughout this entire beef is just to show the world that he's too big of an artist at this point to take any sort of beef with any rappers who are not on his level seriously. Because while, again, he did put some solid effort into songs like Push Ups and Family Matters, it never seemed like he was fully focused on targeting just Kendrick. He was constantly beefing with different rappers throughout this entire thing. Kendrick was always a couple moves ahead of him, and Drake spent more time trolling on Instagram than he did recording new music. And I do think these songs with Sexy Red and Snow D40 are kind of funny. And it's nice to see that Drake isn't, just going into hiding after this loss to Kendrick and taking a long break. But at the same time, to me, seeing him release music like this shows me that he might not know what move to take right now. And I don't think in Drake's entire career he's ever been this confused on what his next move should be. Now, mind you, again, Drake could just be showing everyone that, look, he could drop absolute garbage parody music and it won't matter because his brand, his name is so big that his fan base will eat up whatever he drops. And while that may be true, it begs the question, is this a really tone-deaf move that will set his legacy back in any serious way? I don't personally think so, but it's very weird for me to see guys like Drake and J. Cole both kind of taking a loss to Kendrick Lamar and then venturing off into this weird sound of hip-hop. Like J. Cole just recently dropped easily his worst verse of all time with his new Cash Cobain song called Grippy. Yes, the song really was called Grippy, and if you go listen to it, you might want to grip your earlobes out of your face. And these verses that we're getting from Drake on this Sexy Red song and now this, Wah Gwan Delilah, Hey There Delilah parody kind of sing the same tune, no pun intended. Drake's verses do kind of seem like they're more blatant attempts at just trolling. And again, if he just wants to troll his way out of this beef, I'm kind of fine with that as long as we, in the long term, do get music that's held to the same standard as his previous work. But if you told me 10 years ago that Drake would be taking a loss to Kendrick Lamar in a battle and then dropping parody music, and that J. Cole would apologize for engaging in a beef that he didn't even start, and then dropping a song called Grippy, I'd be disappointed, to say the least. It was nice to see a resurgence of lyricism in hip-hop during the back and forth between Drake and Kendrick, and I hope we don't lose focus on that and take a step back into the trolling and nonsense. But you can't take everything so seriously, so at the end of the day, this is a pretty funny move from Drake, as was the Sexy Red verse where he rapped on the BBL Drizzy beat, and even the Tupac AI vocals. At the end of the day, I thought that was kind of a creative, funny move. While some could perceive it as disrespectful, he's just been trolling this entire battle, basically. And again, I think he's doing it to show everyone that, he's kind of too big or too good to be taking this battle so seriously this late in his career after all the achievements that he's had. It's just not worth it. But I think it's for that very reason that he lost this battle. When you're going up against an MC as serious as Kendrick, you got to come with your best foot forward. You got to come with every chess move calculated perfectly. And while I don't mind the trolling, it does seem like Drake is more focused on that and connecting with the streamers and the younger generation than he is on cementing himself as the top lyricist of all time. Whereas Kendrick kind of focused on the exact opposite. I will say, though, after Kendrick constantly telling Drake that he's not a colleague, he's a colonizer, and basically calling Drake a culture vulture, saying he's not truly from this culture, and then couple that with Ebro saying that Toronto doesn't have its own signature sound, I think it's kind of clever that Drake comes back with this, very Toronto-sounding record with the Toronto accent and putting on this whole kind of Toronto gimmick, almost as a response to all the backlash he's receiving for kind of being an outsider of the culture and not having his own sound. But again, man, it's just crazy to me. If you told me back in 2013 that The Weeknd and Drake's crews would be having shootouts in Toronto and Drake would be taking a massive loss to Kendrick Lamar in possibly the biggest rap battle of all time, and his comeback would be him rapping over a beat that's about his butt being surgically enhanced and some Toronto parody music, I mean, it's just hard to believe it's wild times we live in, but what do you guys think? Is this a funny move from Drake? Does this kind of piss you off? Do you wish that Drake would continue engaging in this beef with Kendrick? Do you want him to drop some summer tunes? Do you want him to continue this Toronto accent? Do you want him to keep trolling? Where should Drake go next? What should his next move be? Let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.